Hello and welcome to High Vibe Astrology. This is Jennifer, back with a video on the Virgo full moon drawn up for February 24th, 2024 at 7:32 a.m. Eastern Time. If you're new, I want to welcome you and thank you for being here and supporting this community with your energy. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so and also consider sharing these messages as you feel guided. If this is your first time listening, I want to explain that I interpret charts as a microcosm for what is going on in the macrocosm. It's simply another way of reading the universal energies as I perceive them, according to my own spiritual guidance. As always, I trust you to discern what works for you and leave the rest behind. As I did in the last video, I will offer my own analysis and interpretation of the astrological aspects, provide the frequencies at the end, and invite you to create your own affirmations based upon the meanings provided. And I want to give a sincere thanks and shout out to Karina, Jennifer, Jim, Max, Grandma Sage, Kim, and Lori for sharing your wonderful affirmations and comments last time. I really appreciate your participation because it makes the work I do and put into these videos worthwhile, so thank you very much. On to the chart now. When we look at this chart, it's easy to see that it holds a concentration of planets in the Eastern Hemisphere. This is the side representing self, while the opposite side, or the Western Hemisphere, represents other people. This concentration really symbolizes a call for self-actualization. And just as Spirit gave me the story of Sleeping Beauty awakening for the Aquarius new moon in the last video, the story I was shown for this chart is Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. So as I go through the aspects today, starting with the 11th house at that 10 o'clock position, and proceed from there counterclockwise, I'll be interjecting some correspondences to Dorothy's adventure as she represents humanity and our collective journey as it is currently unfolding. So let's begin with the 11th house. In this house, we have Venus, Mars, and Pluto conjunct in Aquarius. In its own house, Aquarius rules the 11th house. So this is more emphasis on the impact it has on the evolution of humanity. Specifically, Kundalini awakening and spiritual sight. The 11th house and the Aquarian energy represents the zeitgeist, the group thinking, or the common narrative, if you will. This is the house that governs our future hopes and wishes as well. So it's how we choose to see or would like to see humanity evolve. The high vibe of Aquarius is humanity's evolution and right relationship with spiritual awakening, and the spiritual science represented by the DNA and our Kundalini life force energy as it courses through the bloodstream, which does circulate oxygen and nourishment throughout the body and to all of our cells, organs, and tissue. The low vibe of Aquarius is complete detachment from our feelings or the feeling nature, the very essence of what makes us human. When we see things from only one perspective, strictly intellectual, objective, or scientific, without involving our subjective feelings, we tend to lack compassion for other people or other life altogether. And this is the lowest vibe or expression of Aquarius. It's a perspective too polarized in intellectual superiority that assigns no value or meaning to that which comes from emotional and spiritual connection. When we understand that Pluto in and of itself is pure passion, the Kundalini sexual energy, and Aquarius is the circulation of that energy, it requires substantial consciousness to manage this energy properly. It requires more responsibility. The low vibe of this energy is, to put it bluntly, sexual depravity and control over others or other life forms. The high vibe is humanity's conscious awakening through the enlightened state of Kundalini, moving from the base of the spine to the third eye, to the pineal gland, where the two perspectives or the two energies, masculine, feminine, Mars, Venus, become one and fill the whole body with light. The trine from Sedna to Pluto can help us stay in this higher vibration by honoring the feelings that come up as messengers that reveal where we need to take our power back. We do have to consciously decide if we'll respond with a lower high vibe, and the highest expression is in recognizing the gift of the divine union of these two energies. It's the rebirth of the divine union between Mars and Venus, solar and lunar, masculine and feminine, and Sedna's connection softens the fiery, pure passion of Pluto with compassion. It is interesting to me that the word compassion has passion within it. So it's like the prefix com, C-O-M, could possibly mean with passion. And this implies that the union of something beyond passion, feelings that transcend pure passion, is what turns this energy into love. And the high vibe of Pluto with Venus is the power of love. So Sedna with Pluto is another way of saying that. It's going beyond the low vibe or baser instincts that could possibly express with the low vibe of Pluto, so that these energies are supporting each other in complementary fashion, while also gifting humanity with awakening and evolution. As we move on to the 12th house, we see that we have Mercury, Sun, and Saturn in Pisces, in the domain that is governed by Pisces. In the high vibe expression, this represents the call of connection to the higher spiritual dimensions. Mercury communicates telepathically here, receiving messages from spirit as if by osmosis. The sun integrates these messages into conscious expression, illuminating with its light what arises from the mysterious whispers coming from the divine. Saturn gives these messages a structure in the physical world, making them real, making them tangible and sustainable. The low vibe or enlightened expression of these energies in general simply keeps one in a state of perpetual fear and drowns them in the deep ocean of those fears until they decide they don't want to feel that way anymore or live that way. And this is why the self-actualization represented by the concentration of the Eastern Hemisphere and all the planets here are important in this chart. It is giving us the power to navigate from the middle of the ocean with all this Pisces energy to find our way towards the shore. With Pisces rising, this chart is co-ruled by Jupiter and Neptune. Jupiter is the ancient ruler, Neptune is the modern ruler. So if we're reading for a person, we'd use Jupiter because it's closer to Earth with a more earthly perspective. But because I'm reading for the collective, I'm using Neptune, the planet furthest from Earth, and applying to the macrocosm. So Pisces rising in general represents the energy of absorbing, as if by osmosis, the energetic climate around us. Like a sponge absorbs water, Pisces rising is highly sensitive to the environment and to the emotions and moods of other people. The fact that in this chart we have Neptune in the first house makes this response system that much more immediate and powerful. Neptune is conjunct the ascendant with an 8-degree orb, and Saturn is conjunct the ascendant from the other side, from the 12th house perspective, with a 9-degree orb. So the ascendant really is representing the liaison between Saturn and Neptune. The ascendant represents the lens through which we view and experience life, And with the influence of Saturn and Neptune on either side of it, these planets are influencing or informing the lens of this ascendant. So Saturn restricts at first until we learn to master our fears and break free from external authority being the final word in how we navigate through life. Neptune can also bring up fears, but fears having to do with feeling lost at sea, with no clarity or land on which to place our feet and feel like we're on solid ground. It brings up the fear of the unknown until we learn to trust the divine plan that is guiding us toward that clarity, toward that shoreline that we cannot yet see. So this is where the heavy concentration of the Eastern Hemisphere helps us snap out of the dreamy reverie represented by Pisces. And this is one of the correspondences I see from Dorothy's adventure in The Wizard of Oz. Because if we remember, in her dream, she encountered dark forces that stirred up fear. After her first meeting with Oz, who promised to grant her wish if she killed the Wicked Witch. It's another way of saying that we are not going to simply receive our gifts without going on the journey first. We have to confront the shadow representing the Wicked Witch or the scary and the dark energies within us. So Dorothy and her friends all had to go on this adventure in order to come to the understanding and the realization that they already embody these gifts. This brings me to the energies of the first house, governing over the self and the I am principle. There is an interception in this first house involving Chiron and the North Node in Aries and the South Node in Libra on the other side in the seventh house. Intercepted signs represent energies we have never been shown. We've never been given a role model to follow. So we have to create our own roadmap. It is a lot like the North Node energy simply because it is uncharted, unfamiliar territory. It feels scary because it is unfamiliar. It's completely out of our comfort zone. And it's scary only until we realize it's exactly what we need for greater fulfillment. The South Node is old territory. It has a been there, done that kind of feeling. So we're seeking the newness of the North Node, but don't quite know how to get there. And this is why I love astrology, because it does provide that unique roadmap for each one of us. In terms of this chart, as we're reading for the macrocosm, the conjunction of Chiron to the North Node is important because of Chiron's association with this Virgo full moon. Chiron is the modern ruler of Virgo and further from Earth than Mercury, the ancient ruler of Virgo. So it pertains more to the collective. It is ultimate healing. Chiron is where we have been wounded first, but it's taking the wounds of our past, going on a journey, much like Dorothy and her comrades in The Wizard of Oz, to heal what has wounded us, and then offering that healing energy to others as a form of service. It is the bridge between heaven and earth, and epitomizes the body-mind-spirit connection housed within our own physical body temple. So our healing will only happen as we follow the new territory of the North Node. We can no longer rely upon others represented by that Libra South Node. However well-meaning they may be, we cannot rely upon them to provide us with the answers that are best for us. They have their own roadmap as we have ours. Even when they mean well, they may care deeply for us, but they have their own lens, and they have not walked in our shoes, lived in our bodies, or experienced our emotions, positive, negative, or indifferent. This chart is illustrating the need for each one of us to trust the voice within to find our own roadmap and to determine our own pathway forward. The squeeze or pressure of this interception between Aries and Libra, the nodes, the destiny points, reminds me of a quote by Anais Nin. And the time came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. So what brings us more joy, greater fulfillment from an old and outworn way of being in the world that has at best kept us in status quo, or at worst kept us in perpetual trauma and survival mode. The monstrous machine of the collective human shadow, the matrix that is now crumbling right before our eyes. This is analogous to Dorothy discovering that the great and powerful Oz is really just a human, abusing his position of authority to control others with fear. So remember how Dorothy had the power all along to go home. And even the Tin Man, Scarecrow, and Lion realized that they had these gifts all along, but they had to go on the journey first in order to draw these gifts out. The Scarecrow, who thought he needed brains, was using them all along to direct his friends. The Cowardly Lion found his courage when push came to shove, and the Tin Man had discovered that he had feelings and compassion all along as well. When they come to the end of the journey, they awaken to the fact that these gifts were within them all along. In the original story, Dorothy's shoes were the color silver, representing the moon, the intuition. In the Hollywood version, she was wearing ruby red slippers. The red shoes can be interpreted in a few different ways. There is a low vibe associated with Hollywood and the elite that I'd rather not go into in this video. But I will say that red is symbolic of blood, and shoes are symbolic of our ancestors, our foundation, what we use to navigate our footsteps on this planet. Blood houses our DNA, the memories of our ancestors, and the physical aspect of blood, the life force energy circulating throughout our entire system. Without blood, we cannot survive. However, we do have more than 2 strands of DNA coursing through our bloodstream, and it's not junk DNA, as we have been taught by a certain segment of the scientific population. When these other strands of DNA are activated, it brings with it the spiritual awakening of the dormant gifts, not subjected to time and space as we perceive it. Moving on to the second house now, we have Jupiter, Uranus, and Sedna. This reminds me of human law, Jupiter, connecting with higher law or sacred law, Sedna, connected by Uranus. Just as the ascendant connected through a wide conjunction the energies of Saturn and Neptune on either side of it, Uranus is also connecting Jupiter with Sedna. Jupiter is the ancient ruler of Pisces, so it does co-rule this chart. And in this house, we have Uranus connecting by a wide conjunction the planets on either side of it. Uranus is within 9 degrees of a conjunction to Jupiter, awakening in us new beliefs and perhaps even a new law. Since Jupiter rules over higher law, Uranus, in its conjunction to Sedna, there's a 10-degree orb. It represents what I addressed in the last video on the Aquarius new moon, symbolizing humanity's awakening from a deep and ancient slumber. Sedna represents the sacred law of the universe, demanding respect and reverence for all organic life, and the reminder that we are not just Earth citizens, we're also citizens of the cosmos. But the connection of earthly legal courts, Jupiter, and universal law, Sedna, is united by Uranus, we as people awakening to the pure truth of our origins, which more than likely involve cosmic energies. The other common denominator in this second house, ruled by Taurus, with planets occupying Taurus, is that of abundance, both material and spiritual. The second house rules our values as well as our resources, so the priority we place on material wealth must be in balance with Sedna's sacred laws. So in this case, the values we place or the priority we place on material wealth must be in balance with Sedna's sacred laws. Sedna withholds and provides abundance according to how well the people revere all life, and demands confessions from those people who have transgressed against this law in any way. Sedna's presence here is reminding us to awaken to a new value system that recognizes our connection to each other, represented through the water element, as well as to our ancestors, represented by DNA coursing through the bloodstream, and the proper conscious awakening of Kundalini life force. As these planets draw closer to each other, I believe our human laws and courts will be revolutionized to uphold more of the sacred laws. Jupiter and Uranus will be exact in Taurus on April 20th, and in 2025, Uranus will be conjunct with Sedna in the sign of Gemini. Last but not least, we have the Virgo full moon in the 6th house. So to begin with, full moons represent fruition and completion of a cycle. Virgo represents the harvest and how we reap what we sow. Virgo also rules over health, serving with grace and humility, having a daily devotion that integrates body, mind, spirit connection. It is important to mention that we have a trine from Jupiter and Taurus in the 2nd house to this Virgo full moon. And this is placing greater emphasis on material harvest because it involves 2 earth houses and signs, but also because it involves Jupiter and the moon. Jupiter representing expansion and abundance. Beyond that, however, there is this idea that it is the health of our body temple that is the truest form of wealth, and incorporating a form of daily routine, habit, or devotion that honors this is a step in the right direction. It will, of course, look different for all of us because we each have our own roadmap, but taking small steps on a daily basis will go a long way in our individual lives because everything we do on an individual basis has repercussions in our connection to the collective. So that is all I have for you at this time. Please stay tuned for the frequencies and share your affirmations in the comments section below if you feel inspired. Thank you for listening and participating in whatever way feels right to you. And I look forward to being with you next time. Bye for now.